Hello everybody, welcome back to the Level 1 News. Today is May 2nd, and we're doing government and social news today, so you can stay anointed.
Day 2 of experimenting with a new audio mixer.
We'll see if it's okay. Ryan, you said it sounded a little strange, but was understandable.
It seems like we don't have very much high end in it. It's very basic.
As someone who doesn't have any points in audio, I don't understand that term, but I trust your assessment.
The chat told me I needed to turn on a low pass filter. This one has a low pass filter. The low pass filter is on. But I think you're talking about the opposite end of the spectrum.
We'll see. We'll see what the feedback is. Boy, it's been a long time since we had constant negative audio feedback.
Yeah. Actually, it kind of has. We haven't had one in a while.
I think they just gave up. They were just like, we just don't even care.
I think this might renew their fervor.
Although we have a completely different audio setup for when we get to your office, so.
Well, there's, that's something that you probably shouldn't waste any time being angry about. We're doing our best, and we'll eventually fix it. You shouldn't spend your time worrying about something like that, because there's so many more important things to spend your time being angry about. And oh boy, should you be angry about these next two. And it kind of shows you how the whole globalist agenda, it's like, yeah, we're going to do this internationally. And we're also going to do a horrible version of it here at home.
U.S. and international initiative to oppose online disinformation and censorship. So we've got some stories about it. We're just coming out of an election in France. Macron was reelected, so I guess that's good. But, can't help but notice there's disinformation.
You think that's good?
Well, I mean, there was disinformation around some of the other stuff, so I don't know. Or not. Maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to know. But, so imagine if you're seeing this and you genuinely believe there's an insane amount of disinformation out there.
Well, there is.
It seems like you want to wrest control of the thing in order to kill the disinformation, which leads to, everybody saying we have to stop the disinformation. But we don't agree on what the disinformation is, but we need control of it.
So who decides? Who decides?
The worst people.
What is disinformation? Up until now, we haven't had anybody, right? You don't have this authority that you can go to and say, sir, /ma'am, is this fact true? Please tell me, because I'm too stupid. I mean, come on. I could never discern these facts on my own. I need an authority to tell me. And the United States government, they say, yes, we've got your back, citizen.
Mayorkas testifies the DHS is creating a Disinformation Governance Board. Didn't I read about this in 1984? Isn't this?
This is the Ministry of Truth.
Pretty sure this is what they were warning us about would happen. Actually, I think it's a little bit more like Brave New World than
it's a guidebook.
Than 1984. But hey, whatever. It's still really not great. Sort of really bad. The only fix for it is a more educated population. Oh,
I think it's a different fix.
Just keep cutting education.
Cut something. Well, that is a terrible thing, but, it's not the only terrible thing that the U.S. government does. The U.S. government wastes an astonishing amount of money, and you have probably noticed that you have a lot less money all of a sudden, which is weird because think about the amount of money you have and compare that to $22 billion. What can we do with $22 billion? Healthcare, homelessness issue, fix the medical system. Nah, you know what? I think we'll buy a bunch of useless garbage from Microsoft. That sounds good.
U.S. Army may be about to, quote-unquote, waste up to $22 billion on Microsoft HoloLens. Will soldiers actually use these goggles? Asking for a watchdog. It seems like we're going to need to replace some munitions that were suddenly needed.
Now, it is true that we have not spent $22 billion. We've spent 2% of the $22 billion.
Which is still an obscene amount of money.
We got very little for that. We got 100,000 prototype augmented reality goggles, and they've never been tested. No one knows exactly how useful they are.
They're just in a box somewhere.
So
they're packaged with an MRE, and they just throw it to the side.
Yeah, if it's not super useful on the battlefield, then we've already spent that money. But then we also have this contract, and I guess they could back out of it. When's the last time the military didn't spend their entire budget?
I don't think that's the way it works for any kind of government contracting. They always spend all the budget, so that way they get more money the next year.
1952.
Especially not back when it was the Department of War.
Yeah.
And the White House seeks more power. You never want to see that. You never want a headline to start with
more.
White House seeks more power. Although, you got to say that the world has certainly, because of recent events, woken up to the efficacy and lethality of the common drone. They're using some basic drones out there, and they're using them very effectively.
White House seeks more power to counter use of drones in U.S. So this is, hobby drones and well, just anything you can buy flying into restricted airspace, maybe carrying munitions. And it's sort of dawning on law enforcement, hey, we don't really have a good way to stop these or take them out of the sky or do anything. So there's a whole bunch of departments that they want to give the power to basically do whatever they feel like is the right thing. Because it's, it's destruction of property, which is sort of protected a little bit, somewhat. Kind of. I mean, there's a lot of... I'm just thinking about all the warrantless things, and it's like, oh, they chased a suspect into an apartment building and then burned the apartment building down. And the insurance company doesn't pay the payout for that. So just thinking about, we really don't protect destruction of property all that well.
Wasn't a few years ago, I might be misremembering the details on this, but didn't someone drive a drone into like an electrical transformer a few years ago?
It dropped a chain. It dropped a chain on top of an electrical transformer, which created a short.
Yeah.
And it was, fortunately, there were safeties in the relay station, but if they'd known a little bit more about what they were trying to do, it could have been a lot more devastating.
Yeah, but in Ukraine, they're dropping grenades, and they're super effective.
Right.
Yeah.
They're much more effective than just driving your drone into it.
The possibility of damage is certainly there, for sure.
So they want to basically just take those out no matter what.
Plus, they want funding, because how do you take out a drone, right? We got those microwave guns and, like, I guess, net guns and stuff like that, but cops don't have those. So now we're going to buy them for them. We, as in a taxpayer. Elon Musk, he's been in the news a bit.
Just a little.
A couple of stories I've read about him in the last couple of weeks, but this one is not about the thing that's in the news right now. This is about the thing that was in the news in 2018. Remember 2018?
A simpler time.
Remember when things were good? Well, I guess, he kind of got this feeling of like, hey, that was so long ago. I'm a totally different person now, so that just shouldn't apply anymore. I shouldn't have to deal with these rules anymore, because, by the way, do you know who I am?
Musk ordered to abide by the SEC settlement over 2018 tweets. And the settlement was a lawyer has to review all of his tweets. Well, a lawyer didn't review a couple of his tweets
funding secured
a couple of years ago, and so now he's been ordered, like, you have to comply with this, because he challenged it in court. He said it's been long enough, and the court said no.
That's not how it works.
There is a beautiful irony that he can't tweet without oversight, yet he owns Twitter.
Well, that hasn't gone through yet, but soon.
But it will, and it'll probably be... How long was that supposed to last?
That's probably a 3 to 6 month process, I'd say.
No, I mean his SEC rules.
I think like 5 years.
So it might actually just line up, huh?
Mm.
His big freedom day. He owns it, and he can tweet again on his own.
I mean, even if you look at his tweets now, they tend to come across a little bit manic. They're not manipulating the market, so I guess that's fine.
I have to admit, though, the more that I've been paying attention to the SEC, the more that I think that the SEC does not have any investors' best interest in mind, except for about 5.
Well, it's a revolving door.
Yeah, the SEC works for about 5 people.
Yeah, really. Because you leave the SEC and you go to work for a bank or a clearinghouse or something like that.
Investment fund.
Yeah. Just like
a billionaire.
Just like the automotive industry, just like the pharma industry, they all work like that. Well, Bitcoin, it's controversial right now. A lot of people say it's bad for the earth. A lot of people say that it's good for laundering money. The EU is backing Ethereum, which is fun. We now have like socio-political coin preferences, I guess. But here in the U.S., smaller municipalities are dipping their toes into the water of Bitcoin.
Fort Worth, Texas, is the first U.S. city to mine Bitcoin and will run mining rigs out of City Hall. Remind me again what state's electrical grid had catastrophic problems recently. That was Texas, right?
So this is going to be right there in the City Hall. Got some ASICs. Going to run them right off the power. I wonder how they'll deal with that accounting. Because the taxpayer is paying for that power, right?
But they're going to make some money. Maybe they'll, not lose a bunch of money. Maybe they'll actually earn something.
Maybe they'll funnel it out and steal it. It's going to be a lot easier than with regular income, right?
When I did it and put it under the floorboards, I was arrested. But when you do it, it's hailed as a visionary, blah, blah, blah.
So good for the city.
This is literally just a city PR stunt.
Also, they could lose a lot. I mean, Bitcoin's not been doing great lately. Although with inflation, you would assume that it does. Well, how about, we talk about small municipalities and states doing their own thing. What about a space industry for a state? That's a novel concept, huh?
Maine is one step closer to establishing an aerospace industry. You heard right. Maine. Maine looked around and said, well, if Alabama can do it.
Well,
no offense to Alabama.
They're the one people we can look down on as Kentuckians.
Also West Virginians, Kristen.
Yeah. Well, the thing I thought when I was reading that story was, are they just moving some of the stuff here so that way when, Florida sinks into the ocean,
that's a good strategy, really.
They'll have a place to do launches from.
Wouldn't the weather be much more of a concern in Maine?
Yeah.
Your launch windows are going to be much shorter.
Much shorter, yeah. You have to do it in the summer.
But NASA is working with them, so it's not like they're just going out on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Let's launch rockets from everywhere. Put a launch pad in every state.
You may get your wish.
Yeah.
The nuclear holocaust.
Yeah. I think we need a new section of the news, which is, this will never happen. There's no way that would ever happen. You're stupid for suggesting that. You're overreacting. You're just using talking points. You're dog whistling. Because this is never going to happen. People just would not tolerate it.
Resist. Macron faces backlash as he launches a digital ID days after his French election win. So I'm sure I'm sure his mindset is literally looking at his candidate and as his opposing candidate and saying, "Oh, that person's literally a monster, regardless of reality." And because of corruption and manipulation is why so many people were interested in that candidate, not any kind of internal failing that I have with policy or whatever. You know what'll stop that is if only real people can participate in the process. But it's flawed logic.
That is absolutely not what he's thinking.
Who wants control?
He's thinking, well, yeah, but he's not thinking what you're saying. He's thinking, oh my God, the majority actually doesn't like me. How can I stop that?
I don't know a whole lot about the French election. I read a little bit about it, but the vibe that I got from everything I read was both candidates are terrible and they're just picking the slightly less bad one. If you're French, you can confirm, I guess.
Krista, please name the last election anywhere ever
where that wasn't true. Yeah, where you were like, wow, this is a tough race. I really want to vote for both of them. I wish I could.
That was a whole series of jokes on South Park, and it's never been more apropos.
Relevant, yeah.
Well, the EU, when it's not doing those dystopian things, does do some things that seem good on the surface. They've been pretty good with open source. They're doing some interesting things with the big tech companies. Some of those I definitely agree with. And this one seems like a pretty good step.
EU has joined the Mastodon social network and sets up its own server. Mastodon, at the time we're shooting this, has about 400,000 members to Twitter's 70 million-ish.
Yeah, but it had 370 last week.
So this is going to be a Mastodon server run by the EU. The thing that sets Mastodon apart is it's basically a messaging service. Like what the EU is going to demand of Apple and Google for integrating their messaging system and open protocol, that's what Mastodon is.
Could be good.
Yeah.
They do in Mastodon. You do your own little what do they call them? Federations or instances or whatever. So there'll be an EU instance of Mastodon. Well, I personally suffered a lot from Safari this week. That happens a lot.
Safari is the worst, I think.
It's a terrible thing. It behaves differently than all the other browsers, and that leads to problems and annoyances. But it's on purpose. Apple is very, very protective. It wants and also you can't use anything but WebKit on the iPhone. So they kind of control that. They have enough power they can move the needle, but maybe not now.
Apple's grip on the iOS browser engines is disallowed under the latest draft EU rules. I think this is probably pretty good because the browser monoculture is bad. But yeah, Chrome is implemented with components from Apple that have to do with rendering web pages. Chrome couldn't use its own JavaScript interpreting its own JavaScript engine, which far outperformed Safari a couple of years ago because Apple's like, no, this is ours, we control this. And I think that's very, very anti-competitive.
But also, all those little annoyances that they introduce, they can hide them as these are security, these are our, this is what we do to protect this and this and this. The reality is, it's what they do to try to make you use the app.
Right.
Because they always want you to use the app, and that's never what you should do. Using the app is the ultimate just giving up. you're a failure.
That's a good point because like 3D performance and animation performance is severely gimped in Safari. Because you're supposed to use an app.
I don't think you're allowed to say that anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's just talking about the open source software.
They got in trouble too.
Did they? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I think they resisted that, didn't they?
I think it's still called it.
Good on them.
Yeah.
Well, here's a terrifying headline, especially considering where we are in the world and the sword of Damocles that hangs over our head, except it's not a sword. It's a thermonuclear device.
World's military expenditure has passed $2 trillion for the first time. Yeah, a lot of countries spending a lot more on their military than they. Like, oh, in the modern world, we don't really have to worry about things, and now it's like, oh, maybe we do.
The lightest part here at the bottom, that's the Americas. America number one.
USA.
America number one in military spending since what?
Ever.
1945?
Yeah.
But that's alarming. I mean, you expect it to go up every year, especially with 20% inflation.
No.
But still, is this what we need to be focusing on? Maybe it is. I don't know. The UK loves cameras. They were the first to blanket their entire country in cameras. And obviously, when you do that, you got to buy a lot of cameras. Who sells cheap cameras?
The UK, concerns have been raised over Chinese surveillance camera firm, Hikvision. And it's not because of the security issues that we reported on 2 years ago, or the fact that they're on the State Department block list since about a year ago. It's because of the labor, which is probably done by
slaves.
Uyghur Muslim slaves.
Also, every time we read an article about them, I always read it as Hikvision, and it makes me laugh.
I don't know. I on one of their official corporate pages, it said that it was pronounced Hikvision. But I think
Hikvision's funnier.
Yeah, Hikvision and Hikvision I've also heard.
Some of those like generic Chinese brands that you see on Amazon have the silliest names.
Yeah.
They're usually just compound words that make no sense together.
My favorite is when you have like 20 of those products and they all have the same photo, but they all have a different brand name on them.
Yeah.
I remember Akagu DisplayPort cables because those don't work. They're not up to spec.
Hot tip.
At least the ones that I got weren't.
If you got a name that bad, you need a product that works. Well, the EU has also decided that with this new big tech legislation, they're not only going to, do the whole thing that we talked about before, but they're also going to strip away maybe the most valuable thing that the big tech companies have, which is their secrets to capturing our attention and addicting us.
Google and Meta and others will have to explain their algorithms under new EU legislation. The Digital Services Act will reshape the online world. This is going to be really interesting for a lot of reasons. I don't think that people understand how inexorably linked the ad stuff is linked with the search result stuff. Because getting some results from your search engine driving traffic to an ad farm is good for Google. You'll find the real result eventually.
I'm kind of questioning whether or not that'll ever happen. I can't see the big tech company. Like, they're going to fight this with everything they have.
Will they just pull out of Europe though? I don't think that they do that.
That probably cost them more in the end.
Yeah.
I think that I mean, the reason they got away with the whole Safari thing for so long is because if you're an idiot lawmaker and you look at a phone and it's like, oh, I can get the Chrome app and I can get Firefox and I can get Safari. There's competition here with apps. When under the hood, it's not that at all. And it will be like that when they have to reveal the algorithm. They'll give you a real high level version of the algorithm, but it's not in any way connected to reality.
This is, and I'm sure the commenters will correct me and point out situations where this is not the case. But remember when the war started, and we're all sitting around and we're like, look at Ukraine's lawmakers. They're all young and vibrant, and like they seem intelligent.
Yeah.
And they're able to discuss things without falling asleep at the podium. Why can't we have that? Do you think maybe that's the case in other EU countries as well, and that's why they can do this kind of thing? Like they actually have people who understand the differences you were just talking about? Yeah. Maybe just one or two, but we have zero.
As they sort of, our best hope is Ron Wyden, even he's pretty old.
Yeah. I don't think Ron Wyden necessarily understands all this. I think maybe his staff does, and he's smart enough to
listen to
with
their
them.
It does seem that way at times. It's a fun way to sort of explain things. It explains a lot of terribleness. But also, do the older people know where the bodies are buried? Is that what keeps them there?
I think it's wealth. Like, you have to have so much money just to run for office in this country at like a national level.
But the whole thing is designed to maintain the power. So is the Ministry of Truth. I mean, what is that Ministry of Truth is only designed to maintain power.
It does seem like that you spend all of your wealth, and if you get in, then you're so indebted to everything that got you there that you can't do anything.
But you can also tap that and get 10% for the big guy. And you're good for the rest of your life. So it's a good trade-off. It's nice work if you can get it. And if you're willing to, betray all of your morals and countrymen and be an absolute piece of garbage. Well, in Mexico, it looks like they've got a pretty...
they've gone in a different direction.
They've got a pretty old codger running things here based on the picture. And he's decided, hey, this supply chain issue, there are some things that used to be pretty valuable, but now are very valuable. And we have that.
Mexico nationalizes its lithium industry. The newly passed mining reform recognizes lithium as a national heritage and grants the state exclusive right to explore, exploit, and use the valuable metal.
Ah, yes. I remember back at the Alamo when they were fighting over those lithium fields. They got one lithium mine right now. Belongs to China.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting, huh?
Yeah. That's probably bad. We didn't include it, but it'd probably be a story for next week or the week after. Tesla's shipping batteries that don't include lithium or nickel.
Oh, I saw the cobalt story.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
It's cobalt free, right?
Yeah, they're not. Yeah. You're right. It's cobalt free. If it's cobalt and nickel, but they're not lithium. But the range and capacity is not as good, and they're heavier. But for the cheaper Teslas, maybe it works fine.
Yeah, let's make our cars worse.
Yeah.
Well, more bad news for Tesla, because if you recall, before the current war, we all thought that the next war was going to maybe be India and China. We had some serious border disputes. And they never really got resolved. There's still some bad feelings. And because of that, India's saying, those cars that you're making in China? Don't bring them here.
Tesla tumbles amidst India shutting down car imports from Giga Shanghai and questions about Musk buying Twitter.
He sold $8 billion in Tesla stock. Now that's his personal. He can do what he wants with it. But is he doing any favors to the Tesla shareholders there?
Selling, he would have to sell it over a period of weeks. I mean,
well, he hasn't sold it. He's done the SEC filings.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But still, the SEC filings can move a stock price because it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah, that's true.
We had El Salvador take Bitcoin as a national currency, and I don't know if it was, directly related, but right after that, bad stuff. Bad stuff happened. They did not get the shot in the arm they were hoping from Bitcoin. Perhaps another small nation can do what they did, take what they did wrong, get it right.
The BBC headline is Bitcoin becomes official currency in Central African Republic, and you're not going to get very much more detail out of that in this article than the headline.
I might have read a paywall alternative, and it seems like China is very involved here.
And Russia, I think, as well.
They really just wanted a platform that people would trust for doing electronic payments. This article doesn't say it, but in one of the alternatives that I read, there's a lot of distrust in Central Africa, apparently, for electronic payment processing because people have been burned in the past. So it seems like they're hoping that Bitcoin will make people trust it a little bit more, but it seems like the volatility, especially at the low end, in terms of monetary amounts, would be very bad for these people.
Here's the other issue that this nation has. 4% home internet service, not counting mobile.
Yeah, I think everything has to be done on their phone.
Yeah, so nobody's going to be mining over there. At least very few people, because they don't have any video cards or internet connections. We haven't seen very many follow-up bans or blacklists or things like that because of the war, but the ones we are seeing are coming from Russia, which is hilarious, and just the weirdest things they choose.
Chess.com has been banned by Russia because too many people were asking what people thought about what was going on over there.
And they published 2 articles on the invasion of Ukraine and Ukrainian chess players in times of war. The Russian government was not fans of those articles. They probably did have a bit of a Ukrainian lean to them.
Beep, boop.
In Australia, we just recently had the big showdown between the big tech companies. What was it, Facebook that was looking to pull out of Australia, right?
I think so. That sounds right.
Facebook said, hey, we're not going to let you see all of our stuff. We're not going to do what you want. You don't have the balls to kick us out. And Australia said, yeah, maybe we do. In the end, no one really followed through with any of the things. They had a weird agreement. But I guess it was enough of a win that Australia's like, well, let's just do that with everybody.
Amazon declines to describe search algorithm data, according to this Australian regulator. Yeah, okay. Long-time Amazon user here, and the Amazon website always looks like websites looked 10 years ago, and that was true since 2000. Amazon search has gotten dramatically worse because it is better economically for Amazon to have garbage to your search.
Amazon recommends.
Yes.
Wow, this is garbage. You look at the reviews and they're all terrible.
Yeah.
It's like, how did they pick this one?
Yeah, it's literally because you keep buying stuff from they've got the numbers. The search algorithm should be garbage because you'll buy garbage, be annoyed, and you just kind of deal with it.
Where else are you going to go?
Exactly.
All the stores that sold that anywhere near you are closed.
I guarantee you that they've got the numbers and they know how awful it is, and they know precisely the amount of frustration that you'll put up with because it is garbage.
And they know that that's more valuable than Australia.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Maybe the Australians need to buy more Amazon. They did point out that Amazon's only been operating in Australia since, 2017? Something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think. Maybe I'm thinking of a different company. But they didn't have the time to get the hold on the country, and I think that's part of their negotiations.
They know. And I know they know.
And they
we
know,
all know
that you know that they know. Well, China was moving into their current crisis. They were really cracking down on big tech. And the supply chain, like China, was kind of the bottleneck. So it didn't affect them as much as it affected us because the stuff was coming over here from there. I'm sure it hurt their economy. But now it seems like even they are feeling the bite. And maybe some of those ideas need to be rolled back.
China plans reprieve for tech giants to delay new rules as economy slows. So some of the new rules were things like limiting the amount of game playtime that kids had, stuff like that.
Mobile time.
They're not going to implement that because, well, everybody's at home right now.
And we don't want people to have a revolution, so we're going to let the kids play Fortnite.
I bet that... I got to do another one time. I left it in there.
Oops.
I bet that... did the 1 hour a day or whatever limitations stay during the lockdowns?
No, I don't think so.
They let that up then?
Yeah.
Probably wise.
At least there's that, I guess.
I mean, I don't know. Engagement challenge.
If you're trapped in an apartment in Shanghai right now.
I guess it's easier to be hungry if you've got a few video games to play, right? Actually, I know that's true because I use that as a coping mechanism for my daily hungers. You can get lost in a game and forget. Moving on to social media, we have some people talking about the metaverse, echoing everything that I ever think about the metaverse, which is it doesn't actually exist. There's like 3 or 4 apps and they all are garbage. And this pie in the sky idea doesn't exist.
Snapchat's Evan Spiegel dismisses Facebook's metaverse as hypothetical. The founder says his company is committed to augmenting the real world rather than replacing it. It's probably a good move.
I mean, he's probably also doing a bit of a marketing piece here, but he's not wrong.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But, I mean, he seems not wrong about it, right? You have to give people... There has to be a stepping stone between where we are now and what Zuckerberg keeps trying to sell us. That fencing video?
Yeah.
That's pure fiction. This was an odd piece of timing because it seems that just as somebody purchases Twitter and everybody knows that the books are going to be cracked open and all of their dark little secrets are going to be unearthed, they make an interesting confession.
Twitter admits it overstated users for years ahead of Elon Musk takeover. This is standard operating procedure. It's not like Twitter has done anything wrong here. The entire industry is just rotten to the core with exactly the same kind of stuff.
Is this surprising to anybody at
They
all?
absolutely did something wrong.
Yeah, it's wrong, but like it's not surprising.
Well, they did nothing unusual.
Yeah, I guess, that's a better.
This is totally normal, standard business operating procedure. Google's ad stuff.
Marketing agencies will buy views with bots. They'll bot everything.
Yeah, I mean, if you stand up a site that's designed for millions of users, and you implement really, really good controls for spam user sign up, they'll freak out because it's like, oh my god, nobody's signing up, and it's like, I guarantee you, the only people that are signing up now are real human beings. It's like, no, we got to dial that back some because the numbers don't look as good.
But here's the thing, right? So his offer was based on that stock price, and they had lied about the stuff that they presented in terms of what their company was worth. He could go back to the table. Is there any chance he does that, or does he just want it no matter what?
I think he wants the influence. Yeah, he doesn't care. Money. He doesn't deal in anything as common as money. He just wants influence.
I bet if you took away all his money,
his influence would evaporate.
He'd be very well, no, if you took away all his money but let him keep his influence, he would not be a happy camper. But we all know that the Twitter people hate him, and they are terrified of this. They're doing everything that they can to pee in his Cheerios here, and it seems like they're having to take some precautions for terrorist attacks within the company.
Twitter is protecting its source code from disgruntled employees, reports say. People, and I thought it was talking about stealing source code, but no, they're talking about alterations to the source code.
Sabotage, yeah.
Or just really mean comments that pop up in the HTML.
We're going to take Twitter and we're going to do some stuff.
Or, quietly removing all those controls that manipulate things.
They don't do that. Oh, wait.
We're going to find out, hopefully. But, that was a perfect lead. I didn't realize what you were doing there. Yeah, if only we had some evidence.
Twitter admits that it hid tweets about HBO's QAnon docuseries. It was HBO, the HBO TV series, just in case the algorithm's listening.
And if you've not watched any HBO stuff lately, they are very woke. This was not pro QAnon.
I think I saw this trending, so I think it trended organically, but they weren't allowed to advertise it at all.
Oh, they also admitted that they suppressed it. So what you saw was, like it was so popular they couldn't deal with that fast enough, but they were trying.
See, that's the kind of thing, like people watching that and watching that happen is why we have people that are so scared out of their minds. They're like, we have to have the Ministry of Truth. We have to have that because people are participating in this and it's so crazy.
So Twitter admitted, they're like, no, we have a policy of not ever talking about that. We don't want that to exist at all. But the documentary people were like, well, we're not, necessarily advocating it. We're just telling the story. But the story included how Twitter was instrumental in the spread of QAnon.
Yeah.
That was like the epicenter of it. I don't think they want anybody to hear about that.
The other fun thing with those kinds of conspiracy theories is that a lot of the time a broken clock is right twice a day. And so the conspiracy theorists will latch onto that and say, but then see this thing, it's totally a thing. And
is JFK back yet? Was that one of the QAnon things?
Oh yeah, he rose from the dead.
Yeah. I missed that on the national news, but
that was one of the times where the clock remained broken.
Yeah. What a bizarre thing to believe.
Well, the social media follower count has certainly been tumultuous this week. We have reportedly major inflows of right-wing users into Twitter, major outflows of left-wing users out of Twitter, and major inflows to everything but Twitter as people are just exasperated by the whole experience.
30,000 new users signed up for Mastodon after Elon Musk bought Twitter. At least some people signed up to alternative social network platform Mastodon in the wake of Musk's acquisition of Twitter. Not just Mastodon, a lot of things.
There's part of me that also wonders, again, is this just a bot exodus?
It also looks like development may have accelerated on Blue Sky, which is Jack Dorsey's thing for a distributed protocol he's been talking about for 10 years.
He should not be allowed to be in charge of anything going forward.
He's not. He's just saying we need a decentralized communication protocol, but we're not very effective in putting that together.
He should move to the woods and stop interacting with the world.
I mean, I would love to do that. If I had his money, I would.
I didn't include the story. There was a great story about how the Twitter employees themselves are also part of this big exodus because they're all moving onto Signal because they know that their internal Slacks will be read at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. That's
Well,
the leaked. I thought you were going to mention the leaked all hands meeting after the Musk offer.
Yeah.
We're probably going to. That's
and the legal meeting, the lawyer cried.
yeah.
That's who's in charge of your legal department. Someone who cries that easily. Is that who you want?
Be the person who makes someone cry. Don't be the lawyer.
That's funny for reasons chat doesn't understand.
We've hinted at that story a number of times. Yeah, so I follow a couple of doctors on YouTube, and I'm a big believer that the medical industry is not looking out for my health. Like, I distrust them overwhelmingly, and everything that I've ever experienced with them has only galvanized that. But at the same time, you have to have a real critical eye for those YouTube doctors, because you got to remember they're looking for the clicks,
right?
And they don't ever have to deal with the fallout of the bad advice that they gave you, which is why all of these doctors in particular, I don't know all of their names, but you can look them up. You should never trust them. There's a bug.
TikTok famous doctors are getting into NFTs, and it's a mess.
Well, who's in this list? Scroll down.
Well, of course, don't you recognize all these, Krista?
I did not.
It's the Bored Ape Yacht Club, except with doctors.
The Bored Doctor Club.
Oh, Dr. Pimple Popper.
Yeah, Dr.
I've seen
Pimple
her on
Popper,
YouTube.
Dr. Sina Drobchi.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, there's the Metadocs. There's a couple of them. Now, the idea here is absolutely insane. It's that you buy one of these, bored doctors, and owning that NFT gives you access to them for telehealth and, online consultations. Here's the thing. That's not legal.
Yeah.
You have to be in the same state. You have to have a license. You have to be licensed to do it with telehealth, and none of these people have that.
I wondered, one of the big guys I see on YouTube all the time is, I think it's Dr. Drew. He does reviews of, medical shows.
Drew Pinsky?
I don't know what his last name is.
You never watched, what was that, sex talk show?
I don't know.
You guys don't, Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla? Chat knows.
I think it's Drew.
He also he's a celebrity doctor. Like, he's kind of like a in shape, gray hair, glasses, well-spoken guy. He also did all of the celebrity addiction reality shows.
Oh, I don't recognize that name.
You guys don't know who Dr. Drew Pinsky
The only way
is.
I know the other guy is because he reviewed episodes of House. So I've watched him, so I wondered if he was part of this, because he kind of was like the influencer doctor type.
He's definitely been, if we're talking about the same person, he's definitely been criticized by people who are saying, like, well, what you were doing on those reality shows was not helping those people.
Yeah.
You were just taking advantage of them. I don't know. Maybe he's got the right idea.
I'm always puzzled by the fact that there are so many people who are into the pimple popping stuff. My husband's one of those people. He loves that kind of stuff. Probably why I see it on my YouTube recommendations.
Yeah, I've never watched it, but is it literally
gross.
just footage of her popping pimples?
Yeah, like she explains how to do skincare stuff, and then, yeah, like pimple popping is, I think, part of it. I've never clicked one because I don't want to see that, but she's very popular on YouTube.
I understand the grooming instinct. Like, there is something about seeing that, it's kind of like the apes picking lice off each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like you. I don't.
What's the?
Yeah.
I'll just say that if you've been following Level1 for a long time, you know that we are definitely not interested in the clicks, as evidenced by our content.
We're interested in the clicks, but we're very bad at getting them because we're not good at changing who we are or making ourselves more presentable for the masses.
Exactly.
I think we go too far. Those clickbait thumbnails? That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
So this headline should shock no one. This should be so obvious to everybody because, like you said earlier, they're not the only ones doing this. Twitter just caught red-handed, faking it at the top level.
TikTokers are using ShareBots to rack up massive views and followers.
This is common on YouTube. This is common on Instagram. It's all over the place. Pervasive in marketing.
So they've got this new software that's apparently for like development and stuff like that, but they're abusing it, obviously. and getting themselves bunches of follows.
Twitch also has this. We've had to ban a couple accounts who pop into our chat and start being like, buy followers now.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, like, even I think it's worse in our YouTube comments because they're like those contest winner bots, and everybody complains about those. I mean, literally everybody. And clearly, you could stop those, but it probably juices the engagement metrics, or there's so many bots that the numbers look good, and somebody has run that report, and they know exactly what that's going to do, and it's probably enough of a blip to show up on a report, so they're kind of like, okay, we don't want to get rid of them all at once. Maybe we're just going to like taper down.
So you think TikTok does anything about it?
I think that they won't do anything about it suddenly. If they're going to address it, big if, they're going to do it slowly, because that's the only thing that anybody ever does. Because otherwise, it looks like it's like we had a massive influx of people last month. Oh, that was bots. Oh, people are leaving the platform. Oh no.
Oh, there's a bot cleanse. Oh.
Yeah.
TikTok has to be trying to think of ways right now to capitalize on Twitter's upheaval, right? So it's not a good time to mess with your thing. Not a good time to lower the addiction of your product.
Yeah.
Well, the metaverse, I guess it kind of exists. There's 5 or 6 apps. None of them seem all that compelling, but that's not going to stop them from trying to sell it to you over and over, and now in person.
Meta opens its first store to sell quests, portals, and glasses.
It's so hipster.
So if we look at this from a pure retail standpoint, I mean, the margins on these items is not great. Yeah, it's like I'm experiencing virtual reality.
So do you just stand in that blank space and?
I imagine that screen will show what you're experiencing when there's a demo going on.
Oh, okay.
I'm imagining the stores in the malls, that are like.
Quite a few photos there.
You get a cast iron skillet that's like $400. They got that cast iron skillet in China that costs $5. There's only 3 people in the store ever, but when you can sell a cast iron skillet for $400, okay, you don't really need to have that many sales to keep the store open. This store is going to need to move a lot of product to stay open.
Look at these clicks don't work.
Yeah, they're just reloads.
Oops, we forgot to get model clearance.
Good job, uploadvr.com. That's a paywall alternative.
I mean, I will say this, as someone who's not interested in VR and hates Meta, I do like their storefront. Their interior designer did a good job on it.
Yeah, but that looks like a store that's going to sell me like
Williams-Sonoma
soaps.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like
$400 iron skillet.
Yeah.
It's weird. So if they're going to do tech demos, it's weird that they don't have any like seating areas in those photos.
Well, you
would
stand
think,
for the VR, right?
But if you have like someone with you, you'd think you'd want to get people to sit and like.
Nah, we want to strap a helmet on them too.
Just get everybody strapped in. They're all running into each other in that space. Usually you want to keep people there for like quote unquote the experience.
So this, you know what? I might have actually miscategorized. I did.
Ooh.
I miscategorized this one.
Oh, that's fine.
Yikes. But this is just touching on what will be a big theme in the business section, which is tech companies really crapping the bed when it comes to their earnings and their forward guidance. Facebook did not have a great quarter.
Facebook parent Meta posts the weakest revenue growth for a decade as ad sales suffer. They're okay, we got all the Apple sanctions. That's fine. We got all the tracking stuff that Google has done. Okay, that's even worse. And then app restrictions and everything else. Things aren't looking good.
I'm gonna cut that one because we'll just remember to talk about it.
Okay.
Next time. All right.
And finally, the Facebook Pixel. Did you know the Facebook Pixel is now the Metapixel?
Yeah.
So the Metapixel is everywhere. It's this horrific little thing that tracks you, and it's on every website because they give them incentives to do that. There's a good reason to put it on your website because you can actually harvest the data and trade it and stuff like that. Now, you would think that some places would never even think about doing that because their data is sensitive and their purpose is quasi-official governmental type of thing. Why would we ever want to get Facebook involved with that?
Applied for student aid online. Facebook saw you. The FAFSA form included code that sent personal information back to Facebook. Because, of course, the FAFSA form definitely needed that.
How could we measure your eligibility for a student loan without sending your name and address to Facebook. How could we do it? It's not possible.
Sigh.
Does anybody apply for a student aid not online? Like, did anyone fill out paper? I don't think I did.
I bet the girl that takes the paper form gets super surly if you ask for the paper form.
Yeah.
Sir, please just go to facebook.com
and enter your FAFSA information. No, I want the actual physical form.
Well, you go to the FAFSA website, and then your information still ends up with Facebook. And it's probably not obvious that that's what's happening. That may be a violation.
Now, they claim that it's not doing it anymore, but it was for sure doing it since like 2017 to 2019 or something like that. Yeah. I've talked people down. They're like, hey, we want to put the Facebook pixel on our site. I'm like, all right, yeah, fine. But you realize that means X, Y, and Z. And they're like, oh, we don't want that.
I really want people to click the like button. Listen, we've got the analytics from hundreds of millions of page views. 4 people
will click on that.
And that was probably misclicks.
Or it was your family who you told to do it.
It's not worth the overhead.
Okay, what do we got coming up for business news?
A lot of earnings statements.
A lot of earnings statements.
And security.
It's
several pretty alarming security stories this week.
Kind of the apocalypse in both scenarios this week.
Oh, but it's only going to get worse.
We can laugh about it together. If we survive, we'll take care of each other.
Hopefully.
I'm not taking any responsibility. It's me and the cats.
You're going Raider mentality, right? Have you prepared the cats for that scenario?
I don't know what I'm going to do with the cats in that scenario. They're so helpless.
They'd be good mousers.
I let Toast has been staring out. I have one of those captured blinds inside my kitchen door, so you can just roll up the very bottom of it where he sits, and that's where I feed him. And he sits and looks out that window all day and whips his little tail back and forth.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, and looking at the birds. So I was like, all right, I'm going to let him out on the covered porch and let him enjoy himself. Crouton wouldn't even go outside.
He's scared. Oh.
They're so unprepared to survive without me. I don't know what I'm going to do.
I also don't worry about Cricket running out. He always just watches me take Rue out, and he's like, I'm not going back out there.
Yeah.
My college roommate had a cat that was terrified of the sky. Whenever we would take it outside, it would just look up and it would just freeze.
Imagine
it couldn't move.
It might have gotten dive bombed by a hawk or something when it was a kitten.
Not even that. Imagine you go your whole life and the ceiling is 8 feet above you or 10 feet above you, and then you transition to infinite distance. That's got to blow your little cashew brain, right?
It definitely did, because it would not move or do anything until you picked it up and put it back inside.
All right, well,
anybody got any tips for? I don't even know if I want to do that because they'll just get fleas and ticks. I think
Cat apocalypse survival. Yeah, the ticks are really bad this year.
I got a nice tick bite on my leg right now. First one of the season.
Oh, how exciting! Did you name it?
No, I killed it. I pulled it off and killed it, and then disinfected the wound.
Let's name it Elon.
Oh, yeah. He's dead now. All right, we'll see you then, chat. Bye!